What up, mini people? My name is Estub, and this is my weekly show where I discuss one wargaming miniature related topic. Since this is the first video on my channel, I thought it was fitting that I talk about the origins of me and the hobby, where it all started for me, my process along the way, and where I'm at today. I can remember the first time I ever laid eyes on miniatures. I was at a mall, my mom was shopping for stuff that I didn't really care for, and I, being a geek, sought out Games Workshop, and I saw the High Elf Battalion, and the artwork on it was amazing, and it totally sucked me in. I begged my mom for over a half a year before she finally caved and decided to buy me models under one condition. Since she was the one to buy models for me, she got to dictate what I got. And be that my mom was a total Lord of the Rings nerd, she decided that my first miniatures were going to be Lord of the Rings ones. I treated those models terribly. Anything from thick undercoats to improperly thinning my paints to bad storage, you name it. Sometime later, I picked up lawn mowing as my career in grade school, and then I was able to purchase my own minis. And the first race I ever bought was the fantasy army known as Empire, specifically the Middenheim state, as it was super popular to play that around the Storm of Chaos campaign time. This was the first army I ever seriously started to collect and play with, and I was brutally owned by all of the shop veterans repeatedly, but that did not stop me from playing. After being in the shop for a while and seeing the Warhammer 40k miniatures on the wall, I decided it was time for a distraction. And honestly, what kind of wargamer would I be if I didn't have at least a few other armies? And I thought orcs were the perfect distraction. Their outright savagery and total bestial nature was perfect for a little kid like me. I had a friend, and we went and played on his pool table endlessly, using various household items as battlefield terrain like remotes and DVDs and coasters. However, the sci-fi world did not hold on to me for very long. My all-time favorite villains and fantasy creatures in general are vampires. The mixture of snobbiness, aristocracy, pure evil, and inhuman strength is totally badass. It was time for me to pick up vampire counts, more specifically the Strigoi bloodline. This was back in the day when you had to pick bloodlines for your vampires, and I like Strigoi for the exact same reason I like orcs, for that total savagery. And also, everyone played Blood Knights, and I had to be different, because being different is cool. Unfortunately for my wallet, it was time yet again for another distraction, and this distraction would keep me entangled for a very long time. The Wood Elves had been redone, and their lore and playstyle were perfect for me. Highly mobile glass cannons, selfish defenders of Athol Lorn. There was a certain evilness to their exclusivity, never leaving the forest even when allies called for aid. They were kind of like anti-heroes, like Michael Morbius or Spawn or the Swamp Thing. Thinking of the Swamp Thing, they relate to him in more than one way. Conversion idea. This was the last Warhammer Fantasy Army I've ever invested money in. I introduced some of my school friends to the game, and one guy bought miniatures at an alarmingly fast rate. He amassed a sea of gray soldiers faster than I had bought miniatures over the course of the past 4 years. He had an interesting solution to the problem. He employed me to paint, assemble, and convert all of his miniatures. And just like that, I embarked on the longest and largest commission that I have ever done to this day. And this is kind of a turning point in our story. Before this, it was pure enthusiasm and motivation. But now I had to paint someone else's models, ones that I didn't even like, and I had to do it at a reasonable pace. I had a customer that I had to provide a service to. And as the commission grew larger and larger, motivation to do it continued to wane until it was completely gone. I tried to paint some of my own models to re-spark the motivation that I previously had, but it was insufficient. For a long time, I had completely stopped painting miniatures. I would come back every once in a while and paint a few units for the commission, but it was never longer than a month. Luckily for me, the person who gave me the commission, my best man and one of my best friends, has insane patience with me, and by his grace, I am still doing the commission to this day. I learned several things about commission painting that I'll be talking about in a later video, but I learned something about myself as well. If I was going to continue this commission and even painting models, I would need to cultivate some kind of discipline that would allow me to paint minis on a regular basis. When motivation came, I could ride it and use it, but when motivation left, I needed to have some kind of established routine that I could follow day to day. That's the idea of this YouTube channel. Every single week, I will release one video about miniature wargaming to keep me engaged in the hobby on a regular basis. I'll talk about topics that I'm familiar with and new topics that I learned along the way. And don't be surprised if you see a few videos about Blood Angels. Well, team, that's my story, but what's yours? Did you have any pitfalls along the way like I did? What are you currently working on? Leave your stories in the comment section below. Now is the time of the show when we show off someone from the community's models. And since this is my first episode and I have no submissions, I'm taking one of my buddy's models. This is my friend's second model he has ever painted. There are a lot of people in the hobby that are so concerned about paying so much money for miniatures and painting those miniatures poorly. But my friend just went for it, and that taught me a lesson, is that you can only pre-plan and worry so much. At some point, you just need to put paint on a miniature. If you want to see your minis at the end of next week's video, email me photos here. And until then, paint more minis.